Hi there, everybody. Welcome to Season 5, Episode 7 of the Hard Truth Inside the Football Injury Podcast with me, Philip Ideson, and Darragh MacAnthony, the chairman and owner of Peterborough United. Now, before we get started, Darragh, I did want to just mention that we have once again been nominated in the Football Content Awards. So
Incredible.
Thank you, everybody, for putting in those nominations. Now, we're really up against the big boys this time.
Are we in a different category?
We're in a different category. I think... having won and got some bronze, silver, and golds, then there was they wanted to give us a bit more of a challenge this year. So we're up against.
What were we in previously? What did we win it by?
It was the Best Football League podcast.
Right. So they've now put us in the best organisation.
Yeah, which looks like it's like The Rest Is Football with Gary Lineker, Alan Shearer, and Richards. Who else was in there? There was Sam Allardyce's podcast in there. So I guess they're positioning this as like, bigger picture kind of podcast that we're now in.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a list of the people. Yeah, Simon Jordan, obviously Gary Neville, the overlap, all of those things. So, all right, well, this is going to take a Herculean effort for us to maintain our run of winning an award every year at the podcast. I'm not sure why they shimmied us out of the best EFL podcast. That's a bit strange to stick us in that one. So maybe they're fed up with us winning on our winning streak. So
we need to come up with some harder truths.
Yeah. Well, you might be right there. Yeah, I was, I do have to wait till I've left football before we really bring out hard truth unrated.
Yeah, that's when big guns really come out.
Yeah. That's when our viewership goes to like 100,000 an episode. Yeah. It's the current one. So anyway, but yeah, okay. Well, listen, everyone get voting. What's the voting there, Philip? Where have they got to go to?
You can go to footballcontentawards.com/voting. That's footballcontentawards.com/voting.
Get everyone in your family to vote.
Yeah.
Get everyone you know to vote. Go on yourself and vote 20 times if you have to.
Yeah.
Let's get us up there.
To vote.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Well, we want to kick things off, as a consequence of producer Henry and I spending some time together when I was back in England. We're going to try and mix things up and have a kind of a topic of the day at the top of the podcast before we go into the week that we've just had. And actually something that I wanted to talk about that has only happened. We're recording this on Monday, so it's only happened today. And that's the situation with AFC Wimbledon and their pitch. So they have essentially one corner of their pitch as, whether it was a sinkhole or something, but it looks, extremely unplayable and probably needs a lot of remediation work doing on it. Obviously, they've had to postpone their League Cup game on Tuesday against Newcastle. Also, I think their Saturday game has been postponed. I just wonder if something like that was to happen, at London Road, how would you go about fixing it? What's kind of the steps that you would look at taking?
Well, I guess the first thing I'd be doing is asking Newcastle if we could go to St. James's and half of that gate instead. But I don't really know enough about this regards Wimbledon's situation. They're in a pretty new stadium. I'm surprised. Yeah. I know it was raining on Saturday. I was up in Auburn, obviously visiting my son and watching college football. But I watched the Posh game and it was this noise. I was like, is it raining? I'm thinking, we're only just like into the middle of September and already it's like, it was drenched at our place, and fair play to our pitch staff as our pitch is looking really good in really difficult circumstances. So I don't know how you remedy it. Money solves everything. Yeah. So I guess the answer you're going to get when you bring in the pitch experts, they're always going to say to you, well, you're going to have to throw some serious money at fixing this. So that's got to kill everyone at Wimbledon. This is a fan-owned club. This is a club that relies on income from gates like these two home games, and you're missing a cup game, and then the game on Saturday at home is going to end up being probably on a Tuesday, so you're not going to have to, that's a revenue. It's not just the money you have to spend on fixing the problem, it's the revenue you miss from the actual game on a Saturday. We had this last year where we took a bit of flack for calling off games on a because of the weather, and I'm hoping, touch wood, that doesn't happen again for a very long time. So, I'm no pitch expert. So without knowing exactly what it is, we all know what a sinkhole in Florida is, obviously. So I'm not sure it's a sinkhole, but there's obviously, a serious issue there, but they're going to have to throw money at it to fix it. How
receptive would you expect the EFL to be to reversing fixtures, playing away, because we're early in the season and you haven't played anybody yet? Because if this is a long-term, if it could take, I don't think it's something that looks like you can fix it in a week kind of problem.
Yeah, I've always been of that mind that, years and years ago, I remember it was either, I can't remember what league we were in, think it was League One because Gary Johnson was there, and we had a Sheffield Wednesday game coming up, and our pipes froze. Something happened or whatever it was, and we rang them to reverse the fixture. We couldn't play it at our place, and it was a good few days in advance, and they turned down that request, which I always found, baffling, because if somebody did it to us, I'd probably be like, look, let's just take the home game. We'll do it.
Right.
Nobody wants to pile up the fix. I was laughing when I heard about all the players wanting to go on strike last week. And
Yeah.
I kept thinking of little old young squad Peterborough last year, who played like 65 games. I think Harrison Burrows and Monty Edwards played 65 plus games each last season, and seem to manage, you know what I mean? Playing, even though, okay, they're not playing Champions League football, but compared to most of the top players playing 40 to 45 because of the size of squads, these poor overplayed players everywhere, on their 300 grand a week. It's just tough going.
So you're not in favour of the players on that one then?
No, absolute load of fucking nonsense. Do you know what I mean? So, am I in favour of more tournaments to make it, I don't know, an extra? No. But then again, these players are jetting off to Australia and around the world in the summer to play big preseason. So that's on their clubs. They're taking the money to take them thousands of miles away. But let's not kid ourselves. They're in beautiful first-class sleeper seats and beds.
Yeah.
It's, going to the nicest hotels in the world, playing in nice facilities. I mean, sometimes we've got to get over ourselves. And I've talked about this before. It's not that I'm against player welfare. Of course I believe in it and whatever else. But like I just said to you there, we won a cup last year. We went deep in the playoffs. We played a lot of games. We had a lot of Tuesday games. We had a lot of back-to-back games late in the season. We had a young squad. A lot of those players played 65 plus games in the season. I think we played the most. So no, I'm not. My heart's not bleeding for overdoing it. But
so maybe the players could take a little bit of a pay cut so they can get a bigger squad, and then they won't have to play as many games.
That's always the simple choice. Absolutely, 100%. Why not? I mean, that's the way it is.
How
But anyway,
much do you not want to play those games? How much do you want to give
look,
up?
let's get away from billionaire problems and talk about,
Yeah.
obviously, League One and League Two and Wimbledon's problem, whatever. So in answer to your question, I think the EFL should have the power to flip a game. I think in this day and age with technology and everything else, it's not like you're posting out a load of tickets. Everything's digitalized. So it's very easy to organize a home game. And, I don't know who Wimbledon are playing on Saturday. It's down to the club. But like I said to you, somebody rang Peterborough, what are we, Monday, and said, look, in 4 days' time on Saturday, do you want to flip the game? We're playing Birmingham on Saturday. So Birmingham rang us and said, hey, would you mind flipping it and whatever else? I'm pretty sure we'll still sell the game out. So, no problem, we'll flip it. So, as long as the EFL are okay with that, and I don't see why they wouldn't be, I don't really foresee it being a massive issue. I think we have to help clubs. And the last thing you want to do is get disciplined by the EFL, or like when we had games off last year, there's investigations and there's all that kind of crap, and you got to wait for you're okay, you're not going to get fined. Well, we've already lost a fucking fortune. We don't need you fining us, and we don't need you on our case, because you're actually meant to be there to help us. So that's where sometimes the game frustrates me on stuff, and I get an explanation about, well, you can't do this in the transfer market, and you can't do that, and you can't do this. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, aren't the EFL and everyone meant to be there to actually entertain and help us, not actually impinge on us and make life more difficult for us? That's sometimes my frustration with the whole thing. But anyway, so good luck to Wimbledon. Hopefully it doesn't cost them an arm and a leg, and they can, because they've obviously had a decent start to the season, and the last thing they need is to be suddenly piling games up.
And one more thing before we go to the weekend's game. So last week we talked about sacking managers early in the season, and you were racking your brains for, did you ever do that over your time? Well, trust Swanee to let me know that you did do that one time. He told me about Dave Robertson, who I guess was academy manager. He came in as a caretaker, got the job in the summer, and then lasted a few games into the new season.
Yeah, I mean, good old Alan. I mean, something just popped up my Twitter feed about, was I good for Peterborough United? And it was like, yeah, pretty good for my time at Peterborough. It was, he did like the good and the bad. And it was kind of like, good, bad, good, bad. I'm like, fucking hell. I think it's been a pretty exciting 18 years,
Both sides in the debate here.
Yeah. There was no mention of the, 1,000-odd goals that have been scored in those 18 years. It was just, but anyway, I get it. You've got to give both sides of the argument on that. And, regards Alan's comment about Dave Robertson, he's absolutely correct. I forgot all about that. Look, when you've been in the game 18 years, you're not going to remember everything. You save some things for the next book. But he's right. I mean, God bless Dave. It was never meant to be. It was just a bad hire from the start. And, moral of the story is, just because a temporary manager comes in and wins a few games, don't always get carried away and go with it. We've seen that many times in football. Caretaker manager does really well.
Yeah.
You kind of everything. We could almost go to the NFL and go, the Raiders in Vegas. You got Antonio Pierce, all the players, basically aggressively forced the owner because he was temporarily in charge last year and they won a couple of games. You got to give him the job. Well, that's just gone tits up and pear shape because he never looked like a manager or a coach or a good head coach option. And, he's not going to probably last very long, or they're going to have a terrible season. So anyway, again, we don't always make the best decisions, and I'm not perfect, and I've certainly made a few shit decisions in my time, that's for sure. And I might make a few more, but I'll pretty much make some good ones as well.
And of course, Dave Robertson's first win was against Bradford. I thought I just had to, of course, mention that because that seems to be the way. I think
was it against Bradford? For some reason, I thought it was Sheffield United away.
I believe it was against us. At least I went and did some digging afterwards because it wasn't just that. I think it was Graham Westley's first win was against us as well.
Hey, there you go.
We always have that ability to make a manager look good.
There you go. So interesting.
So let's go into the weekend. So you had a 3-2 win at Bristol Rovers, which by all accounts was plain sailing until the last 15 minutes.
Yeah, how could I describe it? I thought for an hour we were phenomenal. Very good. Obviously changed the formation. I wasn't a big fan of that, but look, that's why I always say I don't pick the team at the end of the day. But I understand why the manager did it. So he made a few surprise choices there, and he got his result. I think that was more important than anything else, just to get off, get winning at home again. And we've had some really good crowds, and you can't keep not winning at home and expect people to show up. Yeah. So for an hour, really good. And then the last, it was almost really funny. I'm in a hotel room, obviously in Auburn, and I watched the first, obviously, hour. And we were excellent. We scored the third goal, and then it was almost like that's it now.
Yeah.
We don't want to score any more goals. We're going to hold on to this and that. The worst thing in football can be the word complacency. And we got complacent. I could see it in our past, and I could see it in what we were doing, and this can happen. And again, apologize for mentioning the word young group. This can happen with a young group, a new group, and it's a new group and a young group kind of thing where they're winning a game 3-0 at home. They're thinking to themselves, okay, that's it now. We don't have to maybe do what we were doing for the first 65 minutes. And then I think the 73rd minute they scored, I turned it off. I just had this horrible feeling. I went downstairs out of the hotel for a cigarette. I was just like, you know what? I'm fucking furious because I could see it coming. The ball went out wide right, and their winger went to put a cross in, and our guy, I forget who was coming to close down the cross. The lack of effort shutting the cross down was the first mistake. Then I think it was our right wing back who lost the header, and it was headed back in. And the guys, he's almost like 10 yards on his own to volley at home from it just can't happen. And thankfully I turned it off because apparently they scored 60 seconds later. So my arsehole would have absolutely collapsed. I'd have been going to the proctologist for stitches. Do you know what I mean? Because what I then did was part of me knew that the referee was going to play 10, 11 minutes. So I didn't put my phone back on until 10 minutes after full time, because it was the same last week. When Peterborough are losing and chasing the game, the average, I think, is 3.5 to 4 minutes. When we are winning or drawing a game, the average is like 7 to 8 minutes. That's a fact, by the way. As much as, maybe Swanee wants to look into that and defend referees, that is a statistical fact. As is the fact that it'll take an hour before the opposition get booked, and usually we'll get booked in that hour for the first challenge. And, we're just getting foul left, right, and centre at the moment. It was the same on Saturday again. But luckily I didn't, and the worst part was when I went back to turn my phone on and look up on the social media account, it was 3-2, and it hadn't ended yet. And all I could see was 3-2. I was like, fuck. So I turned my phone off again. And then my heart was bouncing out, because I was like, it would be very unfair. Look, football can be very unfair. There was no way our team deserved not to win that game on Saturday. I get Bristol Rovers made loads of changes. They had nothing to lose. They went for it and whatever else. We kind of lost our way. We had a poor 20 minutes. The players are probably nervous. They're a young group. They're trying to win at home for the first time. I think the expectations for some of the new players have got to them a little bit at home. That expectation to win every game and score goals and whatever. And it's going to take a little while to grow on them. And I think it probably got into them a little bit. Manager will probably say you should have made some changes a bit quicker. Do you know what I mean? That's why you have a bench with many millions of pounds worth of players sat on it as well. So who knows? You look back on all those things, but the bottom line is we won.
Yeah.
And speaking to the manager afterwards, that was just the thing. Look, we won. And we spoke on Friday, and it's about betting in new people, the expectations. It was like, train good or bad, you just need to win that game on Saturday. And Bristol Rovers aren't mugs. They've had a decent start to the season. They've got a decent squad. And I never for one moment thought it would be a walkover. But at 3-0, you have to put people to the sword. If you want to win promotion from this league, those 3-0s have to turn into 5-0s, not 3-2s. So you have to learn. And it was kind of a bit like last year we had that, where we batter teams, but only win by a goal. So it's almost like learning on the job to be a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more, put people to the sword. Right, we've got them now. And in fairness, we missed a couple of absolute fucking sitters. Even in the final 15 minutes, we missed a couple from a couple of yards out. So we have to clean that up. But it was good to score a few goals at home. It was good to win at home. It was good to win against a team that are no mugs. It was good to give the crowd something to cheer about. It was good for a lot of new players to sample that win at home. We have to clean up defensively. We have to start keeping clean sheets. You know what I mean? We're giving away shitty goals, goals that could be stopped. And we have to learn that even with 10, 15 minutes to go in a game, when you're under pressure, don't panic. Just keep doing, do what you're doing and do what you do well. And we've always said, if you make a mistake, you make a mistake. But if you make a mistake with a panic, instead of trying to play the one you want to play, well, you can criticize that, and that's frustrating. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, the message is always the same. We have a certain way we like to play. Our identity is about scoring goals. Our identity is about dominating possession. Our identity is about, being on the front foot. If we change that, that's going to basically come back to bite us in the arse. So we're not a team that can defend. We're not a team that can let the other team have the ball, pepper our box with balls into the box, possession, all of that. We're not built that way. We're a team built on keeping the football and attacking with the football. So they're all those little inches we're just going to have to learn. We've got some great games coming up, some good games coming up. Some will go our way, some won't. But we have to stick to the message. I don't know what the manager's going to do with the formation. And like every other football manager, I'd imagine he'd probably stick to the formation that worked on Saturday. You know what I mean? So, but listen, it was what it was. I thought, there was some standout performances. 𝗛𝗿𝗄 was fantastic for 17 minutes and very unlucky. He's ran into the goalie and, fucking Posh, that's it, collarbone, 6, 8, 10 weeks. So gutted for him because that was his first chance. Ricky was sensational. Every time people slate him, it just irritates the shit out of me because of what he gives our team. When he came off, that really hurt us because Bristol felt a lot braver going up the pitch. They weren't as brave when he was playing. So there were some positives in there. I thought Manny was a colossus, do you know what I mean, on set pieces and doing what he had to do. Jed made a couple of good saves late on. But again, Jed's the most experienced person in the team. I'm sure he's pulling his hair out and not getting clean sheets. So I want to see a couple of Gordon Banks type performances for him to get those clean sheets, and organise the people in front of him. So, a lot more to come. Early days. I think the really funny thing is that after 6 games this season, we're ahead of where we were last season after 6 games. That's But if you listen to some of the rest of us, the natives and whatever else, who like to be a little bit maybe overcritical, it's almost some plonker put a tweet on my thing about the reason it was 3-2 is because of how cheap I was in the summer. And a lot of fans had to correct him that you joking me, we're the second biggest spenders after Birmingham.
Right.
Like, what are you talking about? I mean, I could go through on Saturday. Who were we missing? You had £1 million player in Randall sat on the bench. We were missing a 300 grand player we just got from Colchester. We have a 500 grand striker in Sweden who's scoring goals in Sweden that's arriving in. We had, I think, about 500 grand worth of wingers who weren't in the first 11. We had a centre half, a young centre half that we spent nearly 400 grand on, wasn't involved. Have you started adding any of this up yet?
No, I'm just thinking of the other ones. You've got the lad from the left back from Crewe that didn't even start the season.
500 grand. Yeah. I mean, we must have had £3 million worth of players not playing on Saturday. Minimum. Like £3 million. Can you imagine Bradford saying they left £3 million worth of players out and won?
No, I think we'd be happy with leaving out 50 grand or 100
grand.
Right,
you're absolutely right there. I forgot about him, yeah. So, you talked about like £3 million worth of players weren't involved or were on the bench or whatever else, that didn't play on Saturday. Well, that's a tremendous amount of money, right? for a League One football team to win a game of football, missing £3 million worth of talent. So I don't know. It's like, calm down.
Did I
With
also
the
see
cheap
that
stuff.
one of your players came off social because he was tagged in a congratulatory way for his performance, and then people started piling on with abuse?
Yeah. And I've always said, and I'm a firm believer, and I don't want Alan again to misconstrue what I'm about to say or make a big deal of it or whatever else. But here's how I feel. I always say, you as a fan have a right to voice your opinion. You can moan like fuck, you can do whatever else. The one thing I'll always say to any fan is, and we did this last year really, really well. Early in the season, a couple of fans got on Harrison's back, and Darren fell out with them in the crowd, and it was a bit of a to-do. And Harrison went on to win Player of the Year for League One. He got a fucking multi-million-pound move to Sheffield United, where he's doing brilliant. And he was our captain, and we want to cut all those things that happened afterwards, yeah? But you had a couple of plonkers basically abusing him in the stands. And all I would say to some of the fans is, if we could not lay off some of the players, particularly the new ones, because I do think, I'm not trying to say this is a problem, some of the players that have joined us this summer, all right, young, whatever else, it's a step up. It's a step up in training. It's a step up in expectation. And I don't want to be arrogant about Peterborough expect to be promoted and whatever, but our fans do.
Well, you have this imposter syndrome as well sometimes, don't you?
Right.
Do I belong here?
Right. So you got some players who are coming into a team that's expected to be at the top of League One, expected to fight Birmingham for promotion, Huddersfield for promotion, and all those big teams. Expected to entertain, expected to be successful, expected to play this style of football that's like really, really good football like we played last year. You got all these expectations. These are players who are coming in, and we train. Our training ground now is a great training facility, and the manager and his coach is very intensive. And with all due respect, and I've heard Ronnie has had a few of these going to Southampton that step up, who's found that really not tough, but like it's like a different step up from League One to Premier League, whatever. And some of these players come from non-league or come from League Two, come from other clubs, and the step up's been really intense. And I think some of them, they're not. It's not that they're going under because of it. I think they're a little bit like, A, we needed to win at home. B, we need to play more games. The expectations are not weighing on them, but like, they need a little bit of help with it. And they need help from me, they need help from the management staff. But more importantly, I actually think they need it from the fans a little bit. And I'm not asking for you we need 12,000 fans on Saturday. Just think about on social media about some of these young lads. A lot of them are under the age of 24. They're all built differently now. I know that from my own son being at college at 18, 19. They're a different generation. They're not like what I was like at 19, 20. I'm giving a fuck about what people say or think. And I think some of them take some of that stuff that's coming at them, personally. And I've always told them not to and whatever else, and just stay away from what's been said out there. So, there's a player, Sparksy, who wasn't fit when he joined us. He's got, no doubt about it, he's got ability. He's got tremendous ability. I think the move has been tough because he's just not been up to speed. I think we play he was used to a certain style at Portsmouth, a certain way. And it's not a dig at Portsmouth. We play, if you look at the way we play with our fullbacks and the introvertness of our wingers, our fullbacks, it's very different the way we play. So there's a lot more analysis. There's a lot more like classroom time on, look, this is what we expect from you. And everyone's talking about Harrison last year and Efron last year. So you got Ibby, Abraham in front of him. You've got him. And you got this left wing last year, left side of Harrison Burrows and Efron Mason Clark, which was one of the greatest left sides ever in League One. And this expectation that, you have to be as good as them. Well, it's 5 minutes in. And I think, before you write people off and before we go heavy, let's just give them a chance. Let's just give them a bit of support, see where it leads. If they're not good in 4 or 5 months, guess what? They won't be in the team anyway. Guess what? People get moved on. That's the way it works. I'm not saying that about, by the way, Sparks, Abraham, whatever. I'm just saying footballers in general.
Give them a chance.
So you've got this performance where Sparks, he created another goal. And he also, Ricky should have scored an absolute dolly that he put in his head as well. He's got the ability to create 15 to 20 goals in our team, without a doubt. And does he need to improve defensively? He'd be the first person to tell you that. But I think if you look at the games gradually, he is. And I think on Saturday, he had one of his best games. I'm not saying he was man of the match, because I think Ricky personally was man of the match. But I think he had a very good game. I think he defended pretty solidly. I think he made goals. He made one goal. He made another one that should have been a goal. He did all the things that were required. He was nominated to be man of the match. And then people went off for that because he was tagged in. And it was just like, and it's just like, why? Like, why? Why are you doing that? Like, at the end of the day, just leave it alone. So you've turned a moment of a good moment for a player who's reading it. He's happy after a win. He's going, oh, my fans, my fan base, after 4 games, think I'm like crap. Make sense of that for me. And
Yeah.
and I know the podcast that put it up, I think they're getting their own bit of grief, all fans. Look, I've always said this: you do a podcast, it's up to you. At the end of the day, I'm all for everyone doing podcasts. But the one thing I'll always say, and it's not a warning to anyone doing a podcast, whatever else, but expect you're going to get flack, you're going to get criticism. The stuff I'll say in the podcast, and people are going to come at me and whatever else. And if you want your podcast to be about how bad the team is, how better the team should be, all the things the team isn't good at, as opposed to all the things you want to concentrate that the team is good at, that's going to happen. It's going to rile some people. It's going to rile some fans. There's going to be, it's probably going to get personal because that's the world of social media. So, I'm not defending the people criticizing that podcast. I'm not defending the people on that podcast. What I'm trying to say is that just expect that's the world you're in. And I think there's a few young lads who are doing that podcast. There's some hard and older boys as well, which can handle that shit. But maybe some of the younger lads mightn't like some of the flack coming their way. But like the players, just be careful. So I would ask everyone just with a bit of decorum, like a little bit of common sense, whether it's a load of lads doing a podcast that you don't like, okay, don't listen to their podcast, don't follow them, whatever. But you don't need to dig them out in a big, horrible way. And equally, maybe the lads on the podcast, just remember sometimes it's not always about how bad the team is or did. Talk about some of the good stuff the team does. Talk about some of the good stuff you enjoy watching the team do. Talk about the potential. Talk about why you think the player's struggling and what do you think the player needs. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not teaching people how to suck eggs. A couple of years ago, I was quite fierce in some of my criticism on podcasts, and I know my players listen, and I don't think it helped. So I kind of made that mantra last year when we were going to back the players. We were going to be like, I'm not going to dig out players and go really heavy on them. I'm going to try and be as placid on that as I can because I think it's the best thing to do for my players. So, sorry to babble on about it, but I care about the lads we have. I think we recruit a really good bunch of guys. If you spend time with them, they're genuine boys, they're genuine hard workers, they're grafters. None of them set out to be bad. None of them set out to have a bad game. Is there a lack of effort? No, I don't think so. But nobody's perfect. And that's just the way football goes.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that unless you walk in the league with 100 points, there's always a scapegoat somewhere. Like it's always. Like the reason to have and I look at it's as long as the players are giving their best and they're not they're trying their hardest, they're as good as their ability will lead them to be. I also believe that it's not their fault if that's not good enough. Because they were selected to be in that position and situation. You can't get better than you actually are. If you're giving your all, then 100%. It's kind of disingenuous to be critical and make a scapegoat of a player for that. When we've had lots of players who you think they're not good enough, but that's the situation we're in, and they were as good. They were chosen because their ability, and they're giving what their ability is.
I agree. Now, if you have a player and they're not trying to leg. And they're absolutely there's one thing being a player who's maybe just crap or having a crap phase of football or playing crap football. They weren't always crap. There's a reason they played at League One. There's a reason we recruited and whatever else. So somebody could just be having a bad time. Joel Randall's 2.5 years ago. Bad time off the pitch. Bad time on the pitch. Look what it did. The power of good getting behind him last year with his own chance turned his whole fucking career around. And if you see a player who's not trying to leg, by all means, if you want to tell them, you're letting your club down, you're letting us as fans down, do so. But just to say, yeah, you shit, you're never going to be any good. So as a human being, think of when people say that to you.
Right.
Think of how you would. Right. Well, look, you pull mental health, and a lot of people do that, whatever else. I'm not always going to pull that. So I would turn around and say to my children when they bring that up, I'm like, well, yeah, you can say mental health, and there are people with real mental issues and real whatever else. But I'm a big proponent of, this is the world you live in. You're going to get criticized. If that's going to affect you in a certain way, let me help you deal with that. Because I've been through a lot of over the years of like trolling and criticism and hammerings and pressure and whatever. And I don't straight away go, oh, I'm just not that guy.
You got a thick skin.
And I'm not having to go at anyone else who uses that as a reason why they're struggling or whatever else. So everyone's built differently. Everyone reacts to criticism differently. Everyone reacts to praise differently. I've known people who you praise and it didn't really matter. They didn't really care about praise. Some people love praise. They love their arsehole being tickled. Some people absolutely fucking despise it. Like I used to say, when I had like 2,000 salespeople working for me, some of them you knew needed an arm around them. Some of them needed a pat on the back. And I used to say to my top management guys, I don't do pats in the back. You know, my pat in the back for you is what is your check. That should be enough. You know, that was my tough way of doing it. But
Yeah.
the ones I could see who need, no, I wouldn't give them a pat in the back, but I'd give them a little cuddle, I'd tickle their arse, I'd do what had to be done. Everyone's dealt with differently. It's like when you date a woman or you do whatever else, you have things you like, things you don't like, you know what I mean? And way to be treated. But I think at the end of the day, you don't need to treat people like they're worthless. You don't need to make them feel worthless, because I just don't think there's anything good about that. You can treat me like I'm worthless. You can do whatever else. I take that as fuel. I go the other way with that. I don't know why.
Motivation.
It's just the way I am. I'm that fucking nasty asshole. It's just like, keep it coming. Do you know what I mean? And like, I'm waiting for my moment, but we're all different. So the bottom line is that, you know, don't tag players in. You know, like I said, this guy on Saturday tagged me in about the cheap thing. I hadn't seen it because I forgot I muted him. It was only the fact some other fan had basically like said something, and I was just like, listen, it was a wanker comment. He's an older fan. I think his son used to work for us. Do you know what I mean? Like many years ago. And I think he always moans regardless. I think if we won the double and scored 200 goals, there'd be something to fucking moan about. So at the end of the day, each to their own. He spends his money. He wants to call me cheap. I guess he's entitled to the opinion. If he's going to tag me while calling me cheap, I'm going to call him a wanker comment.
Yeah.
If he doesn't want to tag me, great. Don't tag me. Call me cheap. Call me whatever. There are people out there calling me a pikey all the time. They ain't tagging me. That's fine. You know, I'd always say grow the minerals and walk up and say that to my face if you need a step ladder. You know, so it is what it is. So, you know what? Positive weekend.
Yeah.
Big game against Leyton Orient tomorrow.
Yeah.
Big game, obviously, on Saturday. I think we're playing Birmingham.
And
So,
Wigan afterwards. So 3 away games now in a row.
Yeah, 3 away games. You know, we're pretty decent away from home. We're still finding our feet. I think a lot of the players are still finding their feet. It's not helped, obviously, losing a lot of good players. So our sports science staff and our physios are all tested. But I'm sure we'll come through it. And a lot of injuries we've had have been very unlucky. And I think that luck won't carry on. You know, and you always want the second half of the season to be as fit and strong as you can. Yeah. And I think if you can get all that out of the way now and you can pick up results while you're kind of going through that, fantastic. Better for it. You know what I mean? So all is good. So that's Peterborough. Let's talk about the mighty Bantams. So give me the juice on Saturday.
I mean, we've got more injuries as well than you can shake a stick at. So we, since we last recorded, we had Mansfield away in the Bristol Street Motors Trophy. Yep. We won 3-0.
Yeah, good win.
Good win. Yep, they made a lot of changes, but we made 8 changes as well.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of really good football as well that came from those goals. It wasn't, you know, hoof it up and hope or anything. It was some really good football. Good. So that was a positive. We came home to Wimbledon on Saturday and it was 0-0. And it was one of those games where you come away disappointed because we had a lot of the momentum probably in the last 15, 20 minutes, but we rode our luck beforehand. So it was probably...
Yeah, they're no mugs. They're no mugs. So I said, I think they'll be up there. So, you know, you want to win those games. A bit like us against Lincoln a couple of weeks ago. You know, you want to win those games. You think those teams are going to be top 6, top 7, top 8. They're going to be around you and you want to pick those points off. But I think that's not the worst result in the world for Bradford.
I mean, I look and think about last season and, you know, something that Ryan reminded me of last time I spoke to him was we turned a lot of draws into defeats last season, and that ended up, you know, we missed out on our goals by 1 point. And so sometimes we just need to, you know, stop those draws turning into defeats and just carry on collecting the points.
100%.
And, you know, and the opportunities to win will come. So
yeah, I agree with him there, and he's right, you know. And I suppose you're gutted because it was at home, right?
Yeah, I mean, like you've said, and we've said, you know, the last few weeks, you always want to win at home, and you always think that's your opportunity to pick up the points. But you know, they had one of their shots hit both posts.
Oh,
you know,
Jesus!
One post rolled across the line, hit the other post, and then just bounced out for us. So we certainly, you know, got a second life there.
Yeah,
and I'm sure we'll look back.
Did you deserve to win or lose?
I think the draw was a fair reflection of the game on balance. You know, we had a couple of what you would think are pretty obvious penalty appeals. Like there were a couple of penalty appeals I don't think would get past VAR and, you know, not be given penalties. So there's still frustration with consistency of the referees, but, you know, we can't blame the referees for everything.
And what's happened on the injury front? Is this in-game injuries or in training?
It's mostly in game. So we lost all three of. We started the season with a back three. We've lost all three of those, and so now we played 4-4-2, pretty much 4-4-2 on Saturday, but we had to change formation because we basically run out of defenders. Left back out. The left wing back was out. The three across the back were out. A couple in the midfield were out. So it's walking wounded. And so part of that you look and think,
respect.
Is that because we've talked about this before? We recruit players who seem to be injury prone, or is it the bad luck of a bunch of injuries happening at the same time? And it's probably a little bit of both, I think.
Yeah, it could be both. Yeah, I mean, for us, it's not. We don't recruit that way. We recruit players on availability. So we've just had a stinker of luck. Like, Rio from Crewe hadn't been injured for like 6 years in his career. And we've just had that horrible, like Con Clark played 55 games last year. To do your collarbone. So none of them have been like hamstrings. They've been like, what would you call it? Clashes. With other people.
Like impact injuries.
Impact injuries, yeah, exactly. And unfortunately, they've been the kind of impact injuries that have led to months, not weeks. So that's a kicker.
Yeah, I think ours have been a mixture. There's been some muscle injuries.
Well, that's on your staff. That shouldn't happen.
That's in game. But yes, I think that, so when I look across our back three, one's an ankle injury. We're not quite sure how long that's going to be. But that was an impact injury. Couple of muscle injuries. Hopefully they're 2 or 3 weekers, rather than 8 weeks plus. Sarcevic is out for a while. I think a month or two. I think that was an impact injury, and he played a lot last season. So
happens.
So given all that, I think change of formation. Last time we played 4 at the back, we got hammered by Notts County 5-0 at half time last season.
Wimbledon score a lot of goals, so to go in there missing your whole back line and come away with a clean sheet. It was 0-0, wasn't it? The game.
Yeah, it was 0-0.
Come away with a clean sheet. No, I think, and that's where fans have to be educated in the game, that you're missing some key pieces. You're missing, important pieces to the puzzle of what you do and whatever else. So there's always, it's not an excuse. It's just, look, we might not be at our best. We might not get the result we want, but there is, pretty mitigating circumstances because of that. So, that's just the way you deal with it.
Well, let's move on to just a little bit around the leagues. And,
sure.
We can't help but start with yesterday, Man City and Arsenal. Man City getting an 8th minute of injury time equaliser.
My daughter, she's a massive fan of the top Premier League teams now. I don't know if it's just a teenage girl thing, all the footballers. It's a bit of a worry. But we were in Auburn flying back. And she was like, oh, the game. I'm like, listen, I know Pep Guardiola. There's no way Arteta's beating him. And, she was giving me the looks. We were driving in the car, dropping my son back and then going to the jet port. And basically, she looked at me, you're not going to believe this. I'm like, what, Man City equalised? And I was like, it's just, there's nobody who's going to take the lead. I see they've lost Rodri potentially for the season today. That could change things dramatically. But, I'm not going to lie, as a Liverpool fan, and we won on Saturday, I was kind of happy with the draw. So, it's not a bad result.
it's the new generation of Fergie time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like 98 minutes or whatever it was. But again, I saw Arsenal again. The thing that drives me mad is you never make the same mistakes twice. And the problem with Arteta is if you go back over time in some of those big games, they always have red cards.
Yeah.
And that lack of discipline irritates me if that's my manager. Yeah. And considering one of his players was sent off for exactly the same thing, Declan Rice, a few weeks ago, what Trossard did by kicking the ball away, that for me is unforgivable.
Does that come from the manager?
No, it does, because if your team were disciplined, they would be fearful doing that again. Because the minute Rice did it, I'd be sitting in that beautiful big cinema auditorium room they have, going to all our squad. If I see that happen again, I'm done.
Yeah,
I'm done. You can go to the 21s for 4 months.
Yeah,
if anybody here gets sent off for a second yellow card for kicking the fucking ball away, the most stupid thing. I don't care how irritated, angry you are. All you're doing is letting your teammates down. Now, this is against Manchester City. You're winning. You're winning, right? And you're already uphill. It's an uphill battle. When was the last time they lost there at the Etihad? When was the last time that happened? So you're rolling in. It's potentially a title. This title will come down to maybe points and goal difference. So coming out of there with a win, tells all the Arsenal fans, it tells everyone in the press, we're here, we mean business. We're finally like getting over that hump. Last season, dropping points in those games. And then one of your players does that, I'd strangle him, and then I'd throw him to the 21s. I'd be just like, I'm done. That's 2 players. That's just bad discipline. I'm sorry. And Arsenal fans won't like me saying that, whatever else. But if you're not thinking that yourself, that's down to management. I'm sorry, it's down to management.
Did you see the Gibbs-White sending off for Notts Forest as well yesterday?
I didn't. What did he do?
So he went in. It was a pretty tough tackle. It was a couple of minutes before the end. He's on the yellow card. It looked like he got the ball. He may have been just a little bit over the top of the ball, but I think he got most of the ball. The referee on the field of play gave it as a throw-in, so didn't give a free kick.
Okay.
And Anthony Taylor, I think it was, who was 4th official, who was right in front of, basically told him, hang on a minute, that should have been a yellow. And so off he popped and gave him a red, which then started touchline shenanigans, and both managers got sent off.
How long left in the game when that happened?
That was 83rd minute.
Yeah. So, and did you think it was a bookable offence?
It was one of those where you look and think it's a little tasty as that, but he actually got the ball. And so it's, should the 4th official be essentially interfering with play when the referee's already made a decision on the field that he's going to let it go?
It's a really tough one, because I don't want players who are on yellows, particularly attacking players. They're the worst. Like, they're always the disciplined defenders, midfielders, know when to pull it in and not to be rash and stupid when they're on a booking. But it's your attacking players who can be fucking morons sometimes, who they're already not the best tacklers in the world. So if an attacking player is on a yellow, stay the fuck away from any player. Right. But by all means, stay in your feet. Stay in your feet. Don't pull someone back. Don't trip them up. Yeah. Don't go in. Your teammates will probably appreciate it more. You're already going to have most likely defenders behind you. It's not like they're breaking to score on you. So why are you making the challenge? And
this was around the halfway line. It's in front of the dugout.
So what are you doing? Just stay out of it. Putting yourself down to 10 men. It's just it drives me mad sometimes when I see stuff like that. Equally, sometimes I get driven mad. My manager, I remember last year against Exeter, I'm watching the game here in America. I think it was Exeter away. And we were absolutely coasting in the game. And he brought on the young winger we had on loan from Brentford. And he took a booking. And I remember thinking to myself, this kid's hardly ever played outside of 21's football. He's going to do something stupid. Take him off. He wasn't having a good game anyway. Take him the fuck off the pitch. If I'm manager, I'm like, you're coming off. And we fucking left him on. And he fucking did it again. And we lost the game. We lost the game. And I remember saying to my manager afterwards, you've got like 15 fucking members of staff. Did nobody pull you? Somebody's got to be there to say, hey, Gaff, take him off. Like,
it's so obvious sometimes, isn't
it? Just take him off the fucking pitch, and it is so obvious sometimes, because it's like, I wouldn't mind if it was like Ronaldinho and he was creating goals and he was running around players and he was doing whatever, but he just take him the fuck off the pitch, because he's new. It's like his first time, rabbit in the headlights, and we just lost the fucking football game because of it. And sometimes it's just a simple decision from a manager. It's just like, get him off. And equally, Arsenal, when all that happened, whatever else, in that kind of, you need your experienced players on the pitch to go over to Trossard and whatever else when he's on the yellow. Don't do anything stupid. You know what I mean? Keep your fucking head dead. Just shit like that. Like, it ruins the game as well. You know what I mean? And it's so frustrating. So anyway, Man City, they are what they are. And Klopp once said Liverpool mentality monsters. Well, what a Man City. So, one of the toughest teams in the world to beat.
And Liverpool turned things around after Notts Forest last weekend.
Yeah.
With
I watched
AC and Bournemouth.
I watched the Milan game. I didn't see the Bournemouth game, but the Milan game was excellent. They were very good. So I don't know if that's a new manager thing, where they might be great for a few games, they might lose a game. At the end of the day, you can't be overcritical of Arnie. They did the business on Saturday. They did the business. They battered Milan. Far superior. Good start in the Champions League. So I think the biggest thing he's got at the moment is he's got most of his players fit. Bar the goalie, I've always said this about Alisson. I don't think the guy's ever played a full season, which is very strange, because goalkeepers play full seasons.
Right, they're pretty usually the most durable.
He's not. And it'd be good to see Kelleher, because obviously they bought a new goalie and didn't want to sell him in the summer, but it'd be good for him to get a run. And he got a clean sheet on Saturday, so good for him.
Talking the Champions League, a good result for Celtic as well. 5-1 against Bratislava.
Unbelievable. Fair play to Brendan. I'm a Brendan fan. You know, unbelievable result for Celtic. You know, fantastic for the financial coffers as well because of the win bonuses you get. Um, you know, they might be a surprise package. So you know, Brendan's got them playing well, and they've certainly kicked on, and he's rebuilding his career. You know, at one of the biggest clubs in the world, funny enough. So yeah, so long may that continue. Well done to the boys, and well done Celtic fans. You know.
Yeah, and Aston Villa got an away win as well.
Yeah, Villa mean business, you know, top to bottom as a club. They're going to be big players over the next 10 years in the market. They're owned by some very wealthy people. They have a very astute manager. They're not mugs. So I'm hoping all the English teams go deep and do really well in this new format in the Champions League, because it was a bit of a damp squib last year with the English team. So yeah, interesting stuff.
They've got Bayern at home next week, so that's going to be an interesting kind of gauge.
That'll be tasty, you know. But I fancy Villa anytime at home. So I think they've got a hell of a squad, and like I said, very astute manager. So you wouldn't worry about that. I don't know who Liverpool have next, but good games anyway.
Yeah, let me go and have a look and see who they've got. So Liverpool have Bologna next.
Oh, Bologna. Okay, fair enough. So look, that won't be easy. We saw it like was it Atalanta last year battered Liverpool. Do you know what I mean? So these Italian teams, they're quite handy. So, but it's I'm intrigued by the new format. So let's see how it all plays out.
Yeah. So coming into the EFL, just a couple of manager changes. So one that happened a couple of weeks ago, we didn't talk about it last week, was Steve Bruce going to Blackpool, and he's had a pretty good start so far.
Well, he's got my agent, so it was really funny because when I was in Dubai in business a few weeks ago, my agent rang me to gauge what are the highest paid managers in League One. So he was trying to pick my brains on it because I think he does a bit of representation for Brucey. So yeah, you know, my gaffer's one of the highest paid managers in League One. So we are just talking about, you know, the various different packages and
what you should expect. What you should ask for.
And he was asking me about Blackpool, and I said, well, look, from what I know about Blackpool, a very wealthy owner, you know, very ambitious, pretty good project. It depends on the fire, you know. Is it still burning strong on Brucey? Because Brucey's a multimillionaire, and I've always liked Steve Bruce. So fair play to him, because obviously it's becoming a younger man's game now in management. So I dare say maybe a few of the Blackpool fans were at the start, but Steve Bruce isn't a mug. You know, a guy who's won that many promotions, had that much success across multiple clubs, not just one or two. So I like that, the fact he doesn't want to be at home counting his money.
Yeah, he's happy. He doesn't want to just sail into the sunset with his money and put his feet up.
No. So yeah, they've got themselves a good manager, and they've turned a corner, and they've had some good results. So yeah, who else got sacked?
Well, not quite sacked. Well, I'll tell you, one that got sacked was the Cardiff manager.
Saw that.
They're bottom of the Championship. Not sure if they've won yet. The random one was Mike Williamson leaving MK Dons and going to Carlisle.
Astonishing.
Yeah.
Well, me and Darren were speaking about it the other day, actually, because he rang me and it had just come up on the thing, and he was like, what the fuck? What's all that about? And I said, I can only imagine MK Dons must have been thinking of making a change.
Yeah.
Because it's MK Dons. And yeah, and even with all due respect to Peterborough, that stadium, the facility, you know,
just got new owners with
plenty of money. Yeah. You know, I don't know if Carlisle's near where he lives, but maybe it was an idea where the manager's thinking, I'm not long for here. If we lose another couple of games, MK Dons are thinking it's going to cost us money to sack him, so we're going to take a few quid. Who knows? And then fair play to the Carlisle owners who have been ambitious and gone out and got a manager who obviously plays nice football and probably think they've got a really good fit there. So yeah, it was intriguing. Do we know who the favourite is for the MK Dons man? I was thinking the Crawley manager would have been perfect for MK Dons because the way they like football. Yeah,
Lindsay, is it?
Yeah.
Let's have a look what the odds are right now for MK Dons. Scott Lindsay, Steve Schumacher, Ryan Mason, Ryan Lowe, Gareth Ainsworth, the top four here. But this was 2 or 3 days ago. Scott Lindsay was evens.
Okay. That would have been the one. If you look at style, and that was under Winkelman, so I don't know. I know they have the same director of football, so I guess if he's looking for somebody, because they had Russell Martin, they've had, you know, the guy who went to Oxford, I think, and into Bristol. They have a certain type of manager, a certain style of football. So I guess the perfect fit will be Scott Lindsay. If you look at what he's done with Crawley, if you look at the very expansive football they like to play, that would be, you know, I don't know what his release clause would be at Crawley, but that would kind of be the most common sense option you would think. I mean, Gareth Ainsworth to Scott Lindsay, I'm not sure I get that in the betting odds. And that's no disrespect to Gareth.
Probably someone put a fiver on Gareth and that, and he made it into the
two different styles. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. So what else is going on down the leagues?
What else we got going on? So let's have a look at.
I see the Reading takeover's collapsed.
Yeah, that stalled. Well, not stalled. It collapsed, didn't it? It was always a bit strange that it was the Wycombe owner who sold out and then
he
wanted
rang
to go
me.
again.
He rang me. He rang me in August. Rob did.
Yeah.
Really nice guy. He rang me out of the blue, and he was just giving me a catch up. And I was like, "You in the Reading thing?" And he explained why he left Wycombe and something had happened to him that and then he was okay. And he was like, "Right, I want to get back into football." And it was a fascinating conversation. He told me it was done, the deal. And we were just talking through a few things, and I was very, very surprised that I think the big, the spanner in the works was obviously they got the Olise sell on from Palace, and that kind of took the financial pressure off them. Whereas maybe if that hadn't happened, the Reading owner would have been under pressure to do a deal. But yeah, I was very surprised that it was so far down the line, it didn't happen. So a bit shocked by that. Yeah,
it seemed like it was a done deal, and he was, he was being visible.
Yeah, very much so.
In terms of,
he told me it was a done deal. That was in August. So they were just at the final stage, and I think money was put in, money was put up. I don't think money was the problem. So I'm not quite sure
he got paid back, didn't he? The money that he put in, he got paid back on it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the issue was, but it's a shame for the Reading fans, really. And I see obviously Everton have been, they've announced today that there's a takeover now subject to ratification by the Premier League and stuff. So that's the Roma owner who's gone in there. Like I always said, I thought that was a bargain. 400 or 500 million for a club like that and the stadium, whatever else. So yeah, interesting. Anyone else lose their jobs?
I'm not sure, to be honest. Not that I've got it seems to be sacking season, but not sure who else has gone in the last week or so. I'm sure that there's as I kind of pulling out the league tables, there's going to be some managers under pressure. Wolves 1 point in the Premier League so far after 5 games. Not the best start to the season.
No.
For them, for sure. We look in the Championship. Cardiff have already gone. We talked about Portsmouth last week.
Yeah.
Preston's already gone. It's really about people being overreactive, isn't it? Or maybe they see something that they feel is so badly wrong that they need to make a change now. But
which can happen. So sometimes it's not all what it seems. You have to get in under the floorboards to find out what's really going on inside a club, dressing rooms, training ground, all those things. There
was talk about Ian Evatt losing his job at Bolton.
Fair play to him. Great win on Saturday.
I think made some backroom changes and kind of given him the vote of confidence.
Okay.
But I think there's a lot of dissatisfaction amongst some of the Bolton fans. I don't want to say all the Bolton fans because I think a lot of Bolton fans realise how far they've come in the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
but a lot of money I think has been spent there.
Yeah, they haven't had the best start. They obviously had a hangover from the playoff final, but it's a big club. It's a good squad. He's been very successful there. And fair play to the owner. She's done well there, holding her powder, not to press the button, because I did see a lot of ear from some of our fans. Not sure of our own H who produces our show. Is he feeling that way? But
I think he's on the side of look how far he's brought us.
Yeah. So fair play to them bouncing back and winning. And so I don't want to see anyone in our industry losing their job. Unfortunately, it's a horrible side to the game. I've done it. I've had people leave. I've had to fire people. You don't want people losing their livelihoods. So even managers I dislike, clubs I dislike, I don't want managers to lose their jobs.
Do you have to take all emotion out of it is that the only way you can do it? Sometimes you sack somebody, they might not get another job in management again.
Yeah, you don't want that to happen because usually you're paying them until they work again. So you're praying to get another
You got to tighten up those contracts then.
You're praying to get another job. Look, sometimes it's just not tenable. It's to the point where you can't work with someone. The rapport's not there anymore. They're losing their head, and every manager will tell you at some stage in their career they've lost their head. Losing's made them lose their head. Losing's made them lose the love for the game, not want to go to work, not want to, they've lost the dressing room and they don't think they can get it back. I think one of the most honest people I heard recently was Ryan Lowe speak about how he felt at Preston, that he tried everything. They had a terrible end to the season. They went into the new season. He got some players in. He got great support from the ownership, and he just felt he couldn't turn it with the group. He was trying everything, and he felt the best thing for the group was somebody new. You know,
Yeah.
and I respected that so much. You know, for a manager to do that, because most people wouldn't do that, because you know they kind of like they don't want to lose their job. So that
What
was really honest.
what does losing the dressing room look like?
You know, you use that term, losing the dressing room. What does it look like? People stop listening.
Yeah.
People stop trying. You know, I remember saying it a couple of years ago. We lost to, you know, Wickham at home, and it was just like, you know, the training ground was a bad place. You know,
Mhm.
it was like there was no relationship between the academy and the first team. It was a dark corridor to walk down. People were basically walking with their heads down. It just wasn't a good atmosphere. And that can happen. And that can happen out of the training ground. That can happen in the tunnels. That can then go over into the dressing room, or, you know, the first team performances. You know, that kind of thing happens. It's football. You know, I've been around long enough to see both sides of it. And sometimes the best thing to do is to take action. Sometimes the best thing is to take no action.
Mhm.
And what Sharon did at Bolton, you know, is the right. You know, I would say to my manager, do you need to change staff? Do you need new
Mhm.
voices? Do you need new people on the training ground? It's not always the manager. Sometimes it's the people behind the scenes aren't pulling their weight. And I've talked about having the best in class. So maybe they felt at Bolton that Everett didn't have, you know, the best in class around him, you know, different voice. And maybe they may, I don't know what went on. You said they've changed staff.
Yeah.
Maybe that was the
Yeah.
best course of action to take. So who knows? So anyway, they're back winning, and, you know, Bolton are a big club. They're going to be up there.
So we had the National League and the Premier League announcing their cup competition this week, and I was happy to see a number of clubs in the National League refusing to participate, to be honest.
Didn't take the bribe, was it? To the FA
Mhm.
Cup replays,
Right.
huh? Yeah. Look, I spoke about this before. I was
Yeah.
disgusted with what they did with the FA Cup, the replays. I didn't like it. I didn't like the fact we weren't properly consulted. We were dismissed. I didn't like the fact then that you know, the National League supported it. I thought that was fucking madness and ridiculous, considering that replays and what it could mean to National League clubs. Fair play to the clubs who put their bollocks on the table and made that call. It's the right thing to do.
Mhm.
You know, I don't really see the National League as non-league anymore. You
Yeah.
know, I honestly think it's a
The
strong.
quality we've talked, yeah, the quality there is as
It,
higher quality as
yeah,
most of League Two.
absolutely. And if come the day ever happened where the Premier League do a deal with us for a bit more money, a few more crumbs or whatever else, I wouldn't be against, you know, trying to bring in, you know, the top tier in the National League as an
Mhm.
extra league in our league. I
Yeah.
honestly wouldn't be against it at all. I think it would make our pyramid stronger.
Yeah. Even go back to the old North and South.
What,
League
what,
Two North, League Two South,
well,
bring together
no,
the
yeah, or
League
League
Two and
Three,
National League.
League Three, whatever. You know,
Yeah.
why does it have to be like North and South? I mean, you know, then you're putting them on a par then with League Two, which is probably unfair. You're automatically giving 23 teams promotion. But what you
Mhm.
could say is it's another league, but it's part of us, and there's more
Yeah.
going up and more going down, and, you know, whatever else. You know, I think, what is it, two go up at the moment?
Yeah.
So you know, and there's what, four go out of League Two into League One. So you should really maybe have four go up, and, you know, four whatever else.
Yeah,
So
and make it less of a trapdoor, you know, when you do
yeah,
get relegated.
exactly right. So you know, I think, you know, we'd be stronger for it. I wouldn't be against it. You know, at the end of the day.
So we'll wrap up with one question that we have from Peter. Peter said, since you have both lived for a long time in both the UK and the US, I was wondering what your thoughts are on what each country is getting right and wrong in sport. Um, and he says, aside from promotion relegation, which we've talked about
Sure.
on this on that side, but things for the English league to take away from sport in the US.
So I've said this on Talksport recently. I'll say it over. I think the NFL is perfect for us to look at and see how they've sold their product worldwide. If you
Mhm.
look at if you look at a graph of revenue per team in the NFL over the last 20 years, from the TV deals, the marketing, the promotion, the expansion and growth of their game, it's exponentially miles ahead of where football is.
Yeah.
So you take your beloved Detroit Lions. 15
Mhm.
years ago, they were probably bringing in 200 million a year, you know, and all the shared TV money and the way they do it. And they're probably now bringing in 500 million a year, if not more.
Mhm.
Yeah. And they've got new stadia popping up all over the place. They've got, you know, more money going to the players because there's more money going to the clubs. That's because they've expanded into Brazil. They've expanded into Europe. They've gone to Germany. London now is pretty much like 6, 7, 8 games or whatever else every year, you know. Where else do I see they're going? But I see they're going to, so you got Brazil, you got Germany, you got Mexico. They've done
They're going to Australia or
going to
something.
Australia. I mean, they are selling their product everywhere, like on a grand stage. There isn't anyone now, doesn't, you know, and I know the Premier League is like all over the world. But I don't think our football product is sold as well. Yeah, we've got now an American TV, you got Wrexham Birmingham, you got all the US owners teams are on left, right, and centre, and that's great. And if that grows our game, I'm all for it. But we want it reflected in the product, the brand value that translates into pounds and dollars.
Yeah,
And I don't
think
do
that
it well enough.
the EFL has only grown as a consequence of the Premier
Right,
League growing.
right.
It's not grown because of it's the brand of the EFL in its own right.
And it comes down to controversial decisions where you break with history. Where I know people don't like the idea of games abroad. I understand as a custodian of a club, and with history and everything else. But I also understand that I want to give my fans better facilities. I don't have to charge as much for tickets. I want to give my fans a better experience, new stadia, refurbishing current stadia. I want all those things to happen, and I don't think it can happen while we get £1 million a year in TV money. But if we gave up one game a year, that would lead down the line to £2 million in TV money, and I have to allocate a percentage of that to make the fan experience better. I think most of our fans could swallow the pill if it was once every couple of years. It's not every year. The NFL teams who get chosen to go abroad, it's every other, bar Jacksonville, because Cam loves Wembley and whatever else. Most of the teams do every couple of years. Patriots went to Germany last year. They won't be back there again for 7 years. So it's one game they did, and so I think most of my fans would be selfless to that and go, we're okay losing one game, every couple of years. If it's going to help us as a football club have less debt, better facilities, better product, branding, I think everyone's on board with it. I know the traditionalists will jump on board and go, you can't do that, and you're selling the soul of the game, and you're doing this. And then you'll have the same people go, but you charge too much money, and it should be 20 is plenty, and it should be this, and it should be. You can't have it all without some sacrifices. That's the hard truth.
So you look at the Premier League clubs play preseason friendlies here in the States, and they play in stadiums that go anywhere from 60,000 to 110,000. They sell them out, and ticket prices are $200-300 a ticket.
That's a friendly.
Is there demand for EFL or an EFL product for an EFL game?
I think so. I think so.
You think of a League One or League Two game, you may get 5,000, 10,000 people if that game is at home.
Yeah.
Is the demand to sell that to 25,000 people in a stadium here in the States?
I think how you do it, and you'd have to do it cleverly, is you would pick a setting and have over 2 days, or 3 days, you would have 3 games maybe. You would have
like a festival.
You would have Championship to start, Premier League in the middle, and League One game, League Two game on the final day. So it's almost like a package that you buy. So you want to go to the Premier League game, you got to buy all 3 game tickets or whatever to go. And that way then you're bunching us in with the Premier League to allow people to know who we are. And that way then it's 3 games over one weekend, and you do it once a year or whatever else in a really, a sprawling city that is going to sell, whether it's New York, whether it's California, whether it's, Boston, wherever. And you basically do it and you package it as a weekend of English football. And call it the pyramid weekend, whatever you want to call it, where you got the best of the best, and then you got the best of the rest trying to be the best, and do it that way. And I think you would sell all 3 games out or 4 games out if you did it that way. I do. And I think you would bring new fans for those clubs, because you talk about the Wrexham effect and the Birmingham effect and the celebrity effect. That's a massively down to the celebrities involved, but it's also down to the brand recognition of, there's this club, how romantic, and you can thank Netflix and Amazon and all these different, documentary style things that were made for putting people on the map. But I think if we're going to expand our product, whether it's to America, Asia, to, South America, we have to go down that route eventually. And I know some people are going to pick the bones out what I've just said, going to twist it in a different way. I'm talking about doing this for the betterment of our game long term, because we've just been sucking lemons on the same pretty much TV deal money for the last 10, 12 years. Wages are going up. Income's not matching it. And eventually you're going to just hit the junction in the road, whereas you're going to have more clubs fall off.
Yeah. The passion is definitely, when I talk specifically about the US, the passion for football is certainly here.
Absolutely. Without a doubt. There's no doubt in my mind. And the problem you're going to have is some other league is going to take that mantle and do it. And we don't want to get left behind. I'm not saying we will. But
the Mexican league is trying.
Yeah, of course they are. Brazil will try. All these leagues will try. And that's where you want Parry, who runs the EFL, to get together who runs the Premier League and go, look, we want to hammer this deal out, but, we've got to join forces and more things. And this is a great way of doing it. And what a bonanza that would be to have a weekend like that packed. And you're very welcome for me giving you all the idea for it. So go and run with it now.
All right, well, let's call that a day. I want to thank you as always, Darragh, for your time, and everybody for listening in. Just a reminder, head to footballcontentawards.com/voting.
Get the awards in.
For you and everybody that you know to be voting for us in that new category, which was Football Podcast Organisation. And of course, keep the questions coming in. contact@hardtruthfootball.com for those.
Appreciate you guys.
All right. Well, until next time, talk to you all again soon.